Well, students, thanks for joining me, and today I have as my guest former Federal Court Judge Shane Marshall. Shane, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, Shane, you were on the Federal Court for more than 20 years and you were at the Victorian Bar for about 14 years before that. What led to your interest in the law in the first place?
My father was a wharf labourer and I used to read his union magazine, so I became interested in industrial relations and then industrial relations law, and also used to enjoy watching Perry Mason on television.
Well, what was the transition like from being at the bar to being on the Federal Court? Was it a hard transition?
It was a hard transition. I found that I had to resist the urge to enter the debate, not to cross-examine witnesses or barristers.
And what sort of work do you actually do? Can you explain to our students as a Federal Court Judge?
As a Federal Court Judge, I mainly did industrial relations work at the beginning, and when the Industrial Relations Court was merged into the Federal Court, then I had a broader remit doing a larger area of work, such as administrative law, migration law, trade practices, environmental law, bankruptcy law, corporations law, native title, range of matters.
So very broad. And
yeah.
Shane, I guess, and we have to come to this point because you have been outspoken about your struggle with mental illness. Yes. In fact, you've been praised as being one of the first judicial officers to talk about your struggle with depression. When did you realise in your career that you were having these struggles, that you were going through depressive stages within your life?
It was after I'd been at the bench a fair while, around about 2008. I was appointed in 1995 and a medical practitioner picked it up.
And did you at the time know that it was depression?
I knew I was down, but I didn't know that it actually clinically was depression.
And I guess it's a pretty well-known fact that the legal profession is overrepresented when it comes to mental illness. Why do you think that's the case?
I think lawyers tend to be perfectionists. They tend to be very competitive, very hard on themselves, and also very reluctant to seek help.
Despite your depression, you were still able to function very well, highly regarded as a Federal Court Judge. What sort of support mechanisms did you put in place or were in place for you to help you with your depression?
When I was first diagnosed, I saw a psychologist for a while, and I wondered why she was treating me for so long after I got off the medication, but it was to put in place strategies to prevent relapse, but that only lasted for another 5 years or so. Then I had a significant relapse in 2013, which led ultimately to me taking long service leave in 2014, leading up to resignation into the end of 2015.
And was that a difficult decision for you?
It was a difficult decision, yes. It's something that I still struggle with now and wonder whether I chose the right path, even though that's a fruitless exercise because it's something that's happened and can't be changed.
Looking back.
Yeah.
So what changes do you think the legal profession more generally can make to assist its members who are suffering from depression, who might have mental health issues?
I think it's important for the legal profession to let people know, especially young people in the profession, that they're valued, that they're, and also to encourage them to think of themselves as people rather than lawyers. I think they're important things.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a lot of students who'll be watching this who may themselves be struggling with depression, might feel a bit anxious, a bit unsure about how they're going to go, particularly at the start of their course. What tips would you give them if they're feeling that way? They're a bit unsure about whether or not their feelings are in fact depression.
I think if there are support mechanisms put in place in universities, they should be availed of. It's very important to remember that you're not alone, that there'll be somebody else going through exactly the same thing that you're going through, and it's far more courageous to put your hand up and say, I need help, rather than just to suffer in silence.
Well, thanks very much for talking about that, Shane, and thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rob.
There you go, students, some great advice. You're not alone. There's always help out there if you need it. and it's important that you seek that support. Thanks for joining me.